Hello boys and girls, talking about the affixes that we had in Season 2 of Dragonflight so far. I'm going to rate them based on their performance and how much did we like them, how much did we hate them, and then maybe some changes that we would like to see in them in Season 3, although we still don't have the announcements of what affixes are going to be there, etc. I think we all enjoyed the fact that there was no seasonal affix, so I hope at least they keep that in place. Now, the first one is Afflicted, and I'll have to just put this into F. I was actually a fan of Afflicted initially because I kind of enjoyed it. It was not that punishing if you missed it, and the overlaps would not cost you as much as in Incorporeal. But I found out that it's actually quite bad of an affix in certain situations as a healer, where you have to dispel your tank, for example, at the end of Freehold with the Old Blades, or in Underoath, where the Dead Speakers are going to cast their stuff. So in those situations, you're basically either have to let the Afflicted go off, or let the mechanic stay on the person that you need to dispel. So in these situations, it's actually quite bad. Adding the fact that you have to change your talents before every run, etc. I think this needs to go into F. One change that I would like to see in this, and I don't know if I'm alone in this, but I don't think healers would mind to actually heal the Afflicted if the Afflicted could show up on their bars as part of the party frames, etc., right? So you can just target them by your mouse over macros, etc., and just spare a few spells to top them up, and then don't worry about the spelling. But the way that it currently works is that they spawn somewhere in Narnia, and you have to single target them and then spam spells specifically for them. So I don't think that's enjoyable, but it could be. I think it could be if they make some changes to this affix. Going to bolstering, and I think the change they made to bolstering was actually very good, and I'm going to put it into S tier because it is very engaging affix. If there is a high health mob, you basically have to target it, because if you don't, either the tank has to make the choice of kiting, or if the mob has an AoE ability, it could basically one-shot your party. But other than that, it's not as annoying as before, where the mobs would also get health, so you actually couldn't kill them. So I think that's a very good change, and I don't mind this affix. I think it's interesting, and I wouldn't mind if it stays in the game as is for the next season. Then we have Bursting. I'm going to put this into low C as well. I like this because it is very playable affix, so to speak. So it's not something that you don't notice, and you have to be aware of it all the time in M+. And you have options, right? So you can dispel, you can pop a defensive to mitigate it, or the DPS could manage their rotation better, so they don't stagger the stacks. So it's a very interesting affix. The only criticism that I have for this is that once the combat ends, that actually keeps you in combat. So you can't start drinking, you can't even mount, or let's say click the cages in Brackenhide Hollow. So I think once all the mobs are dead, at least that should allow you to sit down and eat, right? So let's say even the DPS can help the healers by eating some food and mitigating part of the damage. So I think that would be a change they could consider, but otherwise, although I know people are not that lenient about this affix, I kind of like it. I don't mind it. I think it's a good affix overall. All right, next we have Entangling. Now, I guess the reason with Entangling, or the problem with Entangling, is that it's kind of way too easy, although you have to be aware of it because you don't want to be stunned for 3 seconds. And then the other thing is you have talents that you can pick, freedom for the paladins, etc. So I think it's a good affix. I don't know how they can make it a little bit more engaging, so I'm going to put it at A. It's a high A, or let's say low S. Of course, I don't mind it. I wouldn't like to see it change into something much more difficult, let's say a larger circle or something like that. But overall, I think it was a good addition to the game. It's not something that you completely ignore, but it's not something as annoying and as in your face as Afflicted and Incorporeal. And then Incorporeal, I've been saying my thoughts about this ever since the season started. I think it's very bad. Actually, this is what I'm going to do. Add row below. Okay, and then this row is actually going to be its own category. Just like this. Simply because I think this is the worst possible affix. Maybe the same as thundering, but the idea here is you have to CC them up, but if you have a CC that goes on cooldown, let's say the Hunter Trap and the Shaman Hex, and you overlap, you're basically screwed, because the other one will just keep casting and you have nothing to do about it. The punishment is very severe. Basically, if the cast goes off, it's a wipe, because on high keys, if you do no damage and no healing, the mobs are just going to roll over you and kill you. They also spawn in Narnia in some very peculiar places that you cannot reach. So there are many issues with this, including you have to change talents before each run, and if you forget, you're also screwed. So I wouldn't mind this being completely gone. As I said, I wouldn't mind an affix like that if it was personal and you know what is the tool that you have to deal with it, and then you're the only one punished if you don't deal with your own incorporeal. But I don't know if they're actually considering changes at all to this. So I hope they change it. I hope it's gone. At the very least, but this was probably one of the worst affixes that I've seen ever, especially in this season. Alright, moving to better waters, I guess. Raging has been changed. I'm going to put it into A, because I don't think it's a bad affix. The only minus is that if you don't have suit in the group and the mobs get low, you cannot CC them, and there are certain mobs that fixate you in the current pool of the Mythic Plus. So in Freehold, in many other dungeons. So if they target you and you cannot CC them, sometimes they'll just one-shot you because you just cannot kite. And those are situations where there's nothing that you can do most of the time. So that's my only criticism. Other than that, I don't think it's a bad affix, and I kind of like it. Moving on to Sanguine. Sanguine, actually I'm going to put into C. The reason for that is, obviously, it affects the dungeon a lot, because if it heals the mobs, it will basically enlarge your timer significantly. But my problem with Sanguine is not so much the mechanic and the healing. Alright, we kite, we keep the mobs out of the pools, but there are certain big mobs that will just not move and you cannot CC them, or certain casters that you cannot CC, or even if you interrupt them, they stay in place, etc. And in those situations, there's nothing that you can do. So the mob just stays there, it gets healed to full, and you have to kill it again, and it just feels unfair. Right, so for this particular reason, I'm going to put it into C. I don't think it's a bad idea behind this affix, but there are just certain situations, certain parts of the dungeons where this affix is just too dominant and it feels too bad to play it. That's why I'm giving it a C, relatively low score. Moving to Spiteful. I guess that's better than Sanguine, right? So I'm gonna put it into B. There are many problems with Spiteful. So again, the same thing. If you get out of combat, you can't drink, etc. That's not so dominant. But also sometimes as a melee healer, you just have to like run out and you cannot heal just because there's Spitefuls on you, and you just simply cannot hit the mobs. If the tank is not moving the mobs away, there's also not much that you can do, right? So you can do like a stun, or you can try to slow them and run away, but this is interfering with your gameplay way too much, and sometimes preventing you to do important other things like kicks, etc., CCing other mobs because you use CC on the Spitefuls. So from that perspective, I don't like it, but it's not something that I would mind too much and be as bad as Incorporeal. So if that stays in the game, I'm fine with it. It's not perfect, let's put it this way. It's not perfect, but it's not bad either. So that is basically a affix that I wouldn't mind seeing in Season 3. And then we go to Storming and Volcanic. I guess we can put those into the same paragraph, because one of them is basically targeting the melee, the other one is targeting the range, but the idea behind them is the same. And I don't think those are bad affixes. Some people would say they're way too easy, but I think compared to Entangling, they could be more disruptive to your gameplay, because if you're not aware of them, you can run into a volcano or a storm in a very inconvenient moment, which could basically kill you or cause a wipe or something like that. And there are certain things that you can try to mitigate, right? Jump out of it or pop something to allow you to cast while you're in the air, etc. So those are either high A or low S for me. I can put them here, I guess. I know that the difficulty is not in the same level as, let's say, bursting or bolstering or raging for that matter, but I think that they're good additions to dungeon. You have to be aware of them, you have to know that there's an affix, kind of play around it, move preemptively sometimes, etc. So I don't think those are bad affixes at all, and I guess they'll stay in Season 3 whatsoever. So this is my tier list for the Season 2 Dragonflight affixes. Let me know what you think about them, and let me know what changes you would like to see in some of them. What are your expectations for the Season 3 affixes that we still are waiting for announcement to see what will be the pool in the next season. Thanks for watching, I'll see you guys in the next video. Until then, take care.